This podcast is dedicated to the celebration and preservation of the working Australian Shepherd. Your Aussie is descended from a proud and amazing lineage of hard-working ranch dogs, identified and cultivated primarily in the Wild West. Contrary to the breed name, the Australian Shepherd is actually an American breed success story. Only in America can a blue-eyed, scruffy dog rise from the dust of the American ranch to become one of the most popular breeds in the world today. The Aussie's beauty, brains, and incredible work ethic and almost empathic connection with their human charges make them unforgettable and pivotal members of the family. My goal is to help you understand this amazing breed, learn more about their heritage and their physical and mental needs so that together we can preserve the working Aussie by encouraging better breeding and better vetting of future Aussie owners, ultimately keeping Aussies with their families and out of shelters. Welcome to the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. Welcome to the Instinctive Australian Shepherd Podcast. I'm your host, Jacque Tinker, back with another awesome working dog episode of the podcast. I have a really awesome guest today, Jodi Tietjen. And Jodi has a history in Aussies going way back. She actually trains and trials Border Collies right now, but we're going to start talking about the Aussies in the past. And she's got some really cool stories that she can tell us about some really great dogs, and then we'll get into the Border Collie stuff and maybe some new places we can bring our Aussies to show them off. So welcome to the podcast, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So talk to us about how you got into working dogs.
Well, so I've always been a trainer at heart. In college, I rode horses and liked to ride, and all I thought about was training. And I really enjoyed animals, obviously. And of course, in college, I had a dog, a crossbred dog that we would rope, with the college rodeo team. And we would use the dogs to get the roping cattle in and move the cattle up the chutes and things. And I just was fascinated with the dogs. I've always loved dogs. And of course, always had a dog as a child and, the whole thing. But basically, I was fascinated by the working ability of dogs. And at one time, I went to the Black Hills Stock Show in Rapid City, and they had a dog trial. And I watched it, and you couldn't hardly peel me away from there. And it was actually Border Collies at the time, but they were doing a course, and I was amazed. And I went home. I had newly been married, and we lived on a ranch, and we ran about 1,000 mother cows. And we had a lot of work for dogs, but I was very green. And at that time, that was in 1990, I believe. So the only thing available at that time was a Western Horseman magazine or different livestock papers and things. And there wasn't the internet. And so I still laugh at how I got my first dog, which was an Australian Shepherd. And it was in an ad in the Western Horseman.
Wow.
And so... Yeah, I know. So my in-laws at the time thought I was crazy because I spent $500 on an Australian Shepherd puppy. And
that was a lot back then.
Back then, that was a lot of money, and they thought I was completely crazy. And that dog was Hangin Tree Dude.
Wow, and you got lucky.
Yeah. The thing I will say is that, our first dogs, we put so much time in it. We had other ranch dogs. I had a couple of other crossbreds at the time, but that was my first real investment, to buy a real dog. And what an amazing thing it was. He changed life for me, basically. And he was really an amazingly courageous, dedicated, dog to our family. He was very protective and just was a great dog. And it didn't take us long to add, a couple of more dogs to the routine. But basically, I started with him, and there was some training clinics going on at the time that I got involved in. And I got started, but mostly I was after I got a little guidance on how to get going. A lot of it was trial and error. And basically, I had a dog that helped me learn, just was a really talented individual.
Nice. What were some of the things that you appreciate about him? What were his strengths and maybe, his weaknesses and things you learned from him?
Well, when I got him, I just figured that you could just get another one like him. I figured you just bought a dog and that's how they turned out. But I did quickly realize that he was, an oddity. There's lots of nice dogs out there, but he was strong on both ends of cattle, but was gentle on sheep. He was incredibly protective, of our family, we lived in the country, and that would be snakes in the yard or different things, people, strangers, not in a bad way, just very, very, I guess it's true to the Australian Shepherds, which is very different from the Border Collies. The Australian Shepherds really want to protect their family. And they want to, I guess for a lack of a better term, they're just dedicated to their people.
Right.
And he had natural instinct. He could outrun, he could do any job that I had to do. And it didn't take long before he was doing all the things that I needed to do, from loading chutes, working cattle, to gathering pastures, to jumping cattle across the river to bring home and, for calving. And I did add a dog, and I had ended up with a pair. So I had a dog called Magic, and he was a Border Collie. So and he was sort of an old fashioned Border Collie, but he came from the same kind of lines, that Dude came from. The person that started Dude's line also started the line of Border Collies. So I had a pair, and I used them for everything, and they were amazing together with all the real work we did. I started to show Dude at some of the local trials, the ASC of Montana, and I, was welcome in there by Barb Moe and the group from there. And that was my basic first steps into trialing, and, built some confidence there in training. And I did work other dogs after that, sons and daughters of Dude, for a while. That was kind of the takeoff point for me in training and go in the direction that I've gone. So.
Wow. So what do you think? I think when I look at working pedigrees, and there are several different lines of dogs, different philosophies in breeding Australian Shepherds. And, but Dude is, I don't know. I think I would be hard pressed to find in the working lines, because that's all I'm familiar with. As far as that goes, I'd be hard pressed to find another dog that was bred as often and shows up in as many pedigrees as Dude.
It's interesting because when I sold Dude to Becky, the reason I sold him to Becky was I knew her background and her dedication to the breed. And I thought that would be good for the Australian Shepherd breed, to get him where he could be collected and used. And I knew she would protect, the good lines, and breed him, to the best that she could, and use him to help the breed.
Yeah.
And that was basically, a lot of people asked how I could possibly have sold him. And the answer to that is just what I said. I felt it would be good for the breed for him to go with Becky. Yeah. And it ends up that it is, because I believe, just from what I've heard, that she is using some of the semen very thoughtfully and carefully. So, yeah.
Yeah. And she has been a very good steward of that, I believe. And,
right.
But he has probably been the most used dog, I think, male dog, that shows up the most in working pedigrees in those lines. You see him everywhere, so that's a good thing that he's.
Yeah, and I honestly, I'd be interesting to talk. I haven't talked with her in years, but it would be interesting to know that I don't believe that she actually bred him a ton. I think that he was just very influential in the bitches that he did breed.
Right, and you're right, exactly. I think maybe that's it. That if you breed a dog a few times, but all those puppies end up in working homes, and then those puppies end up being bred, that ends up in the pedigrees a lot. Yes. That's why those good dogs with the good foundations need to be reproduced.
Right. I'm going to touch a thing on a subject that, a lot of people might not think about. So Dude was out of a full brother-sister cross. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. So we all know what can happen with that. We know that you can have very good or you can have very bad. I mean, it depends on how the genetics stack up.
Right.
But, if you get an exceptional individual that is that tightly bred, your consistency probably is going to be a little more likely in producing.
Yep.
Right. So when you breed him to a bitch that's not bred that way, it's sort of, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone to say maybe like an F1 cross, but I think it's very good to help your consistency if you breed to a individual that's tightly line bred.
Yes.
But it is risky. I mean, there's a lot of risk involved. And
yeah.
some people say to me, some people say to me, what is the best dog that you've had? And since Dude, I've had my hands on some tremendous dogs, and I've won a lot of things. And I've been very grateful for the dogs I have. But if somebody asked me today, the one very best dog that I've ever had, I still think of Dude.
Wow.
And the reason was, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one thing was, I have stories about him, and it could be that he was my first really great dog. I mean, it could be that that's why it stays in my heart. But I'll just tell you, there was just different things about him. And you never see dogs that are from a brother-sister cross, rarely. And he was spectacular. So, and I have never done that. Now, just recently, I bred a half brother, half sister, and I did it thinking about him. To be honest. And I know some people raised an eyebrow at me over it. And I do think that we probably need to do a little bit of line breeding if it's well thought out, to get consistent traits, and I'm not an expert, and I shouldn't probably be talking about that, but I just don't know that a lot of people realize that he was from a brother-sister cross.
I think it sounds like I may have heard that, but yeah. And, but there were other people who did that as well. The Lost Costa dogs way back when, I think it was, I'm not going to say because I remember who it is, but it was done more often back then because people weren't as sensitive as they are nowadays about various random things.
People are, yes. And they were, they were after a certain thing. And being very specific on traits, and maybe not as much emotional breeding as we do now. I'm not sure, but I think that now, I think people were very specific about the things they were looking for then. But
and if you think about it in the wild, like with coyote pack or wolf pack or whatever, there's going to be litter mate breedings from time to time. It's going to happen, and its nature will sift out the ones that it doesn't work out well for, and you probably don't want to do it all the time, but at some point, back then they were trying to find there were not as many dogs to breed to, right? Remember, we didn't have the internet, so
that's right. That's a fact too. It was really hard back in the day to find good dogs to breed to. That's a fact.
Yeah, and they were trying. The breed was new, right? It wasn't. It was only really a breed since like 65 or 68 or something like that. So there weren't that many of them. First of all, secondly, we weren't going to drive, like you said, guys. People don't understand this. If you're under, I don't know what age it is, but I'm in my 40s, and we didn't have the internet our entire life. I had to go to a public library and go through a card catalog to find addresses to write people to, and wait for weeks for them to respond, if they ever did respond, for information about dog training. I was big into that too, so I had to write all these dog training companies and
for sure,
waiting for information back, right? And it's not as instant right now, but I still had an email from a guy who has lines that are similar to mine recently and said, hey, I'm looking for a female that's not too tight or not too whatever to breed to. It's even now with our technology age, it's hard to find that exact cross that matches. And a lot of people are terrified of any kind of line breeding. Over 10% is like, oh my gosh, on the COI. And I've seen, my personal opinion is I think there needs to be some line breeding, because those guys that do, their dogs are very similar. I can tell you there's a handful of people that do it, and I have their dogs that come here, random lines. I have a lot of dogs that come in for training, and I'm like, oh, that dog came from there. That dog came from there. You can tell by their dogs because they're very consistent, and they work the same, they look the same, they act the same. But if you do an outcross, I had an accidental litter of an outcross 4 years ago. So I had two of the puppies that I kept, and one, it's funny because you could see individual parent traits in them. There's not a line trait, like, oh, that came from this dog, that came from this dog. So if I have two dogs that are totally different, which Harley and Copper are totally different, and I could see part of Harley here and part of Copper here, there's not that consistency. Like if they were the two same dogs and you had parents that were similar, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see the individuals, because you'd see some of it, but you'd see more the collective, because they're
I agree
similar.
with that for sure.
And I think we need to be less
And that
afraid
might
of
be
that.
right. I think people are afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll touch just a little more on that. I don't want to bore people with that whole aspect, but that could be why he made an influence, genetically, is that, I think when you breed bred dogs, they do throw a little more truth. A friend of mine that's in Scotland talked a lot about when of course, he's old time, and some of the first border collies I brought over from there came from him. And he talked about the villages there. They didn't have a lot of money. They weren't going to drive a long ways, and they used the dogs for real work. They were a shepherd's tool. And so what happened is they bred within the village. They used the dogs, they doubled up on them, and they culled and selected. And the early border collies I had came from him, and they were very tightly line bred. And they were, just like you said, very stamped in their styles. You could pick them out. So there is something to that with the line breeding. It's something worth looking into. But
and there's just like, and the breeding thing in general is hard for us to, the C word is extremely difficult for us to fathom nowadays, where it was just commonplace to cull a dog that didn't work out or didn't have the traits. People were, I don't know the word brutal is, but less emotional about it. Like you said, they were
for sure
along the lines of livestock.
So my idea
of pets
of culling these days are that
rehoming.
That doesn't suit me, but the herders up on the mountain need dogs that aren't to the level that I need them, and so they go to work jobs, but just not to the level that I go now.
Exactly. Our culling is not as brutal. Let me tell you, we won't even talk about it. What it was when I was a kid and you were younger. But now it's rehoming. It's finding a place for that dog to fit, and now we have more people and we have more opportunity to do that as well too, because it was limited back then.
And also, by the time I raise one up here and I have the foundation on them and they don't make it, they're very wonderful to go off and be somebody's
really good dog, right?
They're a really nice dog for somebody. So that's my idea of culling. But anyway,
it's that going on, but it's a good conversation to have, because even if it bothers people, or guys, being polarizing is a way to get with people to think about things, but at the same time, like, if this bothers you, you need to think about it. Like, think about why it bothers you. Like line breeding, does it bother you because you think of them as humans, but they're not really humans, they're dogs, right? Or and think about it and ask yourself the tough questions, and maybe your mind will change and maybe it won't, but be open to different ideas, right?
An interesting thought is, this last thought on this, for me, is if you put up like the top cutting horse trainers in the world and you put up a lot of money, what did they do? They line bred, if you look at the pedigrees, to get the superior individuals. And I mean, it never hurts us to keep trying to improve the breed the best we can, as long as we're thoughtful about it and put thought into it. And so
I concur 100%. So moving on to any stories you want to share about Dude that kind of exemplify what kind of a dog he was?
Yeah, so there's so many dogs that go through my head, and it's hard to sort them. And it's funny that he pops up, and like I said, it could be partly that he was one of the first, good ones. But, I had a little boy that grew up with him, which was pretty wonderful. And he grew up with all the dogs, but Dude was really special that way. And I'll just tell a little story. My stepfather, he passed away, and he had some horses, and we brought them home to the ranch, and there was a stud horse in the bunch. And I kept him in a pen, and every day I would go in and I would grain that horse. And there was a walk-through gate that had a latch that just basically was one of those hooks that went in the little hole, and held it. And one day my son's little pony was out and grazing out just outside the pen a ways, and I went in and lazily didn't hook the latch. And it was crazy because he didn't even follow me with the grain. He spun around. It's like he knew, he was waiting for the day that I didn't hook the latch. And honestly, he spun around and pushed that gate, and he was out, and he was on top of that pony. And it was the most horrifying thing in the world to me. My little boy was watching, and the stud horse was going to kill the pony. I mean, If you've ever seen a stud horse attack a pony, it's a gruesome thing. And of course, I am screaming hysterically, trying to get the stud horse off the pony.
Right.
And the only thing that saved the pony's life was Dude, because Dude started heeling and grabbing that stud horse by the hind legs. And I mean, the stud horse, and he could bite, trust me, Dude could bite hard.
Yeah.
And he felt the hystericness, coming from me.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, he did everything he could do. And finally, that stud horse let go of the pony and went for him. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to kill Dude and strike him and get him, And in that time, when the stud horse turned for the dog, the pony, boy, he was, thank goodness,
got out of there.
And I just still get emotional thinking about how he knew, to help me. Yeah. He did those kind of things that I can't describe. And I've never had a border collie that would do the same sort of things. Yeah. And a lot of people really enjoyed Dude. Like, he was a fun dog to be around. Yeah. But I could really it would be funny if I could have him sitting right next to me, and you could be sitting across there, and they'd be talking about what a cool dog he was or how nice he was. And I could turn to Dude and I could say, watch him, with a kind of a tone. And all of a sudden he would turn his head to you. And, then here comes and instantly he was on you. Yeah. It was, and he just did those weird things, and then I could say, oh, you're all right. And he was back to your bud too. But he was a really different individual.
Those are the Aussie
really
traits,
solid minded, but incredibly, I don't know the word. I mean, it still means a lot to me, the things I did with him. Yeah. And I could run a sheepdog course with him in the field. Mm-hmm. I mean, I trained him up, and it was amazing, really, when I think back the things that he could do.
Well, you didn't have I'm guessing you probably just didn't have any preconceived notions like, oh, he can't do this.
No,
he's not a border collie. He can't do this.
I had no idea. No, I didn't.
Right. So yeah, I'm probably looking back on that was probably a big difference between a lot of the dogs that we see nowadays. People, I think their biggest thing is the mindset. You didn't go to a billion trials where they're like, oh, this dog can't do field trials.
Right. And I think when I ran in the post-advanced classes, he just didn't have any trouble with it. And no. And then, I went to a few of the little local trials that we had, and he always did well, no matter what I put him in. So yeah, he could run with anybody. He didn't have, the eye style. He was a more upright dog, but he was a very keen upright type. You know what I mean? He was very keen on his work, but he was not a creepy crawly type. But he was very keen.
Yeah, that's the Aussie eye. They use their eye differently than border collies do, but they still have it. It's just totally different definition of how they use it. Yeah. But there were Aussies back running at Meeker years ago. I've heard these stories of these Aussies running at these sheepdog trials many years ago. And at some point we kind of just went and I hear all the time from growing up on, they can't do that. They can't do that. I'm like, I think it's a good idea when you don't have boundaries.
Yeah, the really good ones can, and the ones that are selected for the best traits sure could.
Yeah, and if you train them and understand and have expectations of their abilities, it has to be a working dog that's going to have the drive to go run out and look for something. You've got to have a few things in place to be able to have these things work. But,
I'm working right now. It's a lady showed up in my life, which is really interesting, but out of the blue, and wanted to take lessons. And she said, I have a couple of Aussies. And I kind of thought, well, I'll be honest with me. I'll take anybody that has heart and try. So my little rule of thumb is anybody can come once, but I could be busy the next time.
That's right.
And I don't mean that bad. Anybody that has heart and try and really wants to learn, I'm happy to have them. So she brought these dogs, and I'm telling you, they're tremendous. And I've enjoyed them. Like, I had a whole refreshing thing with the Aussie again, and great memories. And boy, I've really had a good time. And it was really refreshing to me to see that there's some very nice Aussies still out there. And I haven't really tracked them. And one of the reasons that I left the Aussies, first of all, when Dude left, I knew I was putting him in a great spot, but at the time, I'm going to be honest. I hope being honest is okay.
It's perfect.
But I felt like the Aussie people didn't want to grow. And there were a lot of really mean things going on at the time, and yeah, they said things like, well, you're good at this because, you don't have to have a full-time job. And, we were ranchers, we ran 1,000 mother cows, or
Yeah,
you
you're
get
not working very hard at all. I mean, whatever.
all this stuff. So, okay.
Yeah.
And, people wanted to attack my dog, and people wanted to kind of so I knew he would do well for the breed, and
Yeah.
I'd have other nice dogs too. I did. I had some young dogs off of him that I ran in the cattle dog fraternity, that Terry Martin and Steve Wynn did. And, I had a lot of luck with some nice dogs off him too. But the lack of wanting to grow at that time is probably why I went into a different place.
Yeah. And I understand that too, because it sadly hasn't changed. It sadly hasn't changed much as far as the whole we play small. They play small with Aussies, the majority. Now there's a few of us who are pushing hard and pushing outside, but it's frustrating because you hear a lot of this, we have so many flipping rules, and we have in our stock dog program, and we have so many. It's not fair. It's not fair if you don't perfectly set this up and this up. I'm like, I learned that a long time ago. The more you train your dog, the more fair things get. So you have less excuses.
Yes, and also selecting, the right one. I mean, we can't dumb it down. If we keep dumbing things down, then we end up with not a superior breed.
That's right.
And at the time, I felt like that's what they wanted to do, was just to keep it dumbed down. And I thought, let's go with this breed. Let's make these the dogs that they can be, with selection and training and up in our mindset. But I didn't feel like there was enough of that. And
I agree, and there's not now, I don't think, enough of it either, but there are a few brave souls that we're going out and running at Border Collie trials, and we're training our dogs to do higher things. And I ran twice last summer at Border Collie trials. Copper, my dog, won cattle finals at ASCA last year. And the thing is, they're still mean. Like on Facebook, there's a couple people that said I wouldn't have fed any of those dogs on those cattle dog trial winning dogs at finals. And I'm like,
love to say mean things.
Or your dog can't work in a pasture. I'm like, that's why my dog is not the greatest trial dog in the world, because he works all day out here in the yard, and the things that they do. This is the thing that people are missing out on. If you're only trialing your dog, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I encourage people to push harder, because the things you're missing out are the beautiful things. When the camera's not there, when nobody's watching you, the things that your dog does, like saving the pony from the horse, right? No one was watching that. It was just you and the dog, and the amazing things that they do happen when you're working with them every day. Every day they can read your mind. We could go in there and we trial. He's a good trial dog, but he's not a great trial dog, because he's not going to let me micromanage him like that. And when he had a good day, he knew how to put those cows in the pen. I stood way back when he penned those cows at finals, because he knows how to pen cattle. Like we do this here all the time. So I encourage people, like, that is where you're missing out, is that daily. And I know everybody can't do that, and I'm totally support trialing, but I also totally support people not ripping each other down when they win, especially coming from people who've never even trialed their dog once, and then ripping them down saying, oh, those dogs they're weak or whatever. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't understand why people have to try to take people's joy away when they do well.
Right. We should be encouraging each other, and then, saying good things about, oh, that's awesome that you won. You did great. It was a big thing to get there. Getting to finals in ASCA is a big deal. Takes forever.
I do admit that I've grown a lot in the last, I don't know how many years for sure. It's a slow progression. So, I don't know when it really fully took on. But there was a time when I thought that I knew, and I thought people should do what I thought, and, and what I thought seemed, but really I've developed into the person that is, if you're happy with your dog and you are satisfied with where you're at and where you're going, I am happy for you full-heartedly. Right. And if you have some wins during that process, that's awesome. If you have a heart to really move forward and go on and go deeper, man, I really push that. So, I've gotten okay with that, but if you really want to strive to win, or to get stronger, or to get a little more, out of your dogs, I really love that. So, but I'm okay with people being okay with where they are, but I don't think that those people should badmouth the others.
No.
And that's kind of, so If we
No,
could come to some kind of thing there, that would just be wonderful. But but I have to admit, I've not always been the best about not going. I didn't understand why everybody didn't want to do the same journey as me.
right,
And what I
right,
realize is it not, that's what makes this world go around, is that we don't all have the same journey. And
right.
we're not
It'd be
all going to
super
have the same
boring.
level.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
It would be super boring. However,
Yeah.
along that path, if you're not growing, you know,
Right.
you're stagnant, and I always encourage people like whatever you're doing, get better, get a little better, go to a clinic, go to some more trials, go to somebody who's better than you for lessons. Like if you start beating people that you're going to lessons for, you might want to start getting another mentor on the side. Maybe that's convenient for you to keep going there, but I always am around people who kick my butt because I'm not going to get any better if I'm constantly beating everybody
Sure.
around me. And that's my philosophy in business and in life. We have business coaches in our other business that we own, and we always want someone who's farther down the road than we are to
Right.
chase, to give us advice, to go to people who are winning everything, and don't listen to what other people say about those people. I've been to some border collie trainers, people will say just ugly things about them, and I'm like, okay, well, they weren't like that to me. They were amazing and respectful to me, so I'm going to treat you as if I didn't hear any of those things, because people can be mean and petty and whatever, but
Well, it's a fact
yeah.
that, some of the people that I've helped the most have been the hardest on me, which is really, that was a struggle for me. I'm just going to admit it. People that I gave the most to actually had probably hurt me the most. But in this business,
Sad.
you just have to be ready to just, stay passionate about the dogs
Yeah.
and try to not let those things affect you mentally.
Yeah. And the
And that
ironic
can be
thing,
hard
and
on you.
yeah, it is hard on you. And people, that's sad because, the thing is, we're working with dogs and there's no guile in a dog. A dog
Right.
doesn't do that. They're the most innocent and pure of heart creatures, and horses and all these animals that we work with, cattle and sheep and animals, they don't do that stuff, they don't, uh, and so it's ironic that seems unbalanced a little bit that you're working with these innocent more animals and then we act like that towards each other. So I hope it's
Sure.
something that we can change and be self-examining as a sport and as a group. Just look at each other, look at yourself, because you can't change anyone else. You can only change yourself, and
That's
say,
right.
hey, am I the best that I can be right now? And if I'm not, am I the best that I can be as a person, as a dog trainer, as a stock person, a stockman, and do and how do I grow?
Just touching on what you just said there. So I think a lot of that, I think people that are getting into the Austrian Shepherds new and want to do the herding thing, one of the things they need to do is go learn a little bit about understanding stock. I
Yes,
think that a
ma'am.
lot of people jump in and they try to work stock, but they don't have any understanding
Hmm.
of the stock and how the stock think. And I feel like that's really, really useful.
I agree with you 100%. And I have students that come that don't have access to stock, and that's fine too. It just, we do a lot with like, look at, watch the sheep. What are they doing? What are they going to do next? What
Yeah,
do you think they're going to do? And then, I encourage people, sounds crazy because I really hate ducks, but my students that have gotten ducks like for their backyard, because you can put ducks in a
mm-hmm.
backyard in a lot of places,
For
and
sure.
they
Yeah.
work their dogs, they have improved exponentially in their ability to read livestock and their training with their dog and their understanding of everything, just having ducks,
Oh, for
you know?
sure. For
And
sure.
it's funny because it's just hilarious. But you're right, the
Yes.
stockmanship thing is number one, we're stock men and women. We are stock people. We are number one, the reason for these dogs is to take care of livestock. And so
Yes.
we have to be.
So I think a problem, I'm going to just talk a little bit about one of the things I feel is a problem. I feel that people will get sheep to train on and, they'll have the same sheep a year later. And basically the dog doesn't have to work them anymore.
Hmm.
It's more going through the motions. And I don't know the answer to that. I keep fresh stock here all the time. I trade my stock out when I'm training. I
Hmm.
want the dogs thinking and having to think and feel.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that ruins dogs is stock that just follow the person. They don't have to pay attention to where the stock's heads are
Hmm.
and that sort of thing. And I feel like that's a real problem for people, is keeping stock that keeps their dogs thinking. And, that's where you've got to get creative if you're going to
Yes.
train.
I agree 100%. And I had a student, well, my students come out and I have my set of sheep, and part of it is a biosecurity issue that I don't chain out my sheep a ton, but my sheep are super honest. If you trial with mine, they'll go wherever the dog tells them to go. They don't run around pens. They don't
Mm-hmm.
play stupid games because they're not
Mm-hmm.
allowed. They never even learn that skill.
Sure.
But they're easy because if the dog says go here, they'll go there. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
cut off or turn their eye. And then so I keep a set of wild and ones that are my registered sheep that don't act right because I got them as adults and they don't quite turn their eye right. And they don't, you know, so my student was feeling pretty cocky about, where we were on this whole thing. I'm like, all right, so it's time for you to move off the trained sheep to these wild sheep that I
Mm-hmm.
don't let very many people work because I use them for my dogs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, yeah, you learn the difference between, oh yeah, they lull you into a false sense of security,
They
especially if
do.
you're
The
running
false sense of
courses.
security.
It's a false sense of security, and then you go out and you wonder why your dog did terrible at a trial. Well, number one, you have to get your dog out. Like you can't keep working, even if you have your own stock. I had to go to other people's places and work my dogs. Even my
Yes.
my final dog hopper last summer, I did that. I went to the border collie trials. I went to border collie trainers around here. I went to different people's houses and worked their stock
Mm-hmm.
because your stock, they know copper rules with an iron fist, and if they don't do what he says, they're going to get in trouble. And other sheep don't know that. And so he has to learn to
Right.
do that. So it's
Sure.
not just swapping your sheep out. And if you've only got a few sheep, it's not a biosecurity issue. You could just get rid of them and move on
Right.
if you're not raising them or whatever. But I was so glad for lambing season this year because I'm like, I need some fresh stock. So, but you're right 100%
Yes.
on that.
It is. It's a little tricky, that
Hmm.
piece of it.
Yeah, it
And
is.
I actually feel sorry for people that don't have access to stock that's, fresh enough to try to see, because oftentimes I picture if the arena fence wasn't there, what would happen.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so,
Yep.
because a lot of the dogs haven't gotten to face those challenges of the
Yep.
fresher sheep. But
And sometimes I think lately my new thinking has been that arena fence. I have a large, mine's 200 by 300, so it's, I could have two arenas inside of mine, but it's bigger. And then I have pastures and
Mhm.
fields everywhere.
Sure.
But I think the also is in our mind as a handler, the arena walls. There are walls in our mind too. Like we can't work outside those walls because those walls keep us
Mhm.
safe, right? So we need to be brave and take our dogs and our stock outside of the arenas because then you'll
Yes.
know, are they really
Yes.
covering or are they just
Right.
following?
Right.
Right?
Covering versus following is a
Hmm.
big thing. And that's what, I have a great lady that's coming, and we're talking a lot about, getting the dogs thinking. I always have fresh sheep here, and I've really enjoyed watching those dogs think and handle. And boy, I'll tell you what, they can. And
Mm.
it's just putting it there for them to do,
Yeah,
and get a feel for it.
it really is. Those well-bred dogs, the dogs that have it inside of them. Not every Aussie, just like not every border collie or Kelpie or whatever breed has it inside of them to work stock or control stock or has the
Mhm.
different level of stock. But if you've got a good one, the more experience you give them,
That's
they
it.
flourish. They
That's right.
flourish. And
I
having
agree on that.
trainers like you who can say, look, this is how you get them out. This is how you, um, get them covering, you can see the little mistakes that you're making, being off balance by a few
Yeah.
inches or whatever,
Right. I
It's
agree.
really neat. It's really cool. So, you are involved in NCA, correct?
I
Because I
am. I
believe you
just
were,
went on it. Yes, I just went on as a board member,
yes.
and I compete. So, in the early days for me, we ran cattle, but we also ran sheep.
Hmm.
And in the early days, we were broke, and so the sheep, helped pay the bills. And
Cattle
and when
people
I went,
don't like to say that, but it's like a story
uh,
you hear all the time.
it is a fact. So what happened was I started showing some of the sheep bred border collies, and there was quite a market for them.
Hmm.
And so I would do real work with them, and then people were interested to buy them for trialing. So we made, some basically our operating loans and different things that we need by selling some of the early trained dogs that were ready to run at nursery level sheep trials. And I did that for a lot of years. I went into that wholeheartedly, and became pretty good at it. Like I won a couple of the USBCHA national
Hmm.
nursery championships, and I placed at all the top stuff, and I've kind of been there, done that in the sheepdog world. But what's fun is now I'm not in that position anymore, and so I'm going back to my roots, which was more the catalog stuff.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the field work, and that's where I feel the NCA is good. Now there is the Mountain States. They have a great program for people getting going. Very good for getting your feet wet and getting confidence, and they're just a great group for
Yes,
that kind
they
of
are.
thing. And for me, I've just been around. I like that too, and I do go to their funnels, and I just really enjoy running my dog. So I'll run anywhere,
That's right.
But
That's right.
I know.
That's right.
So, and there are some really good options right now. But the USBCHA, so they don't have a novice program or a pro novice program. And the reason, somebody actually just asked me about that, and I said, well, it's not that they don't want to promote it, but when you take the top 150 handlers and to the finals, and they all get a fresh set of 5 sheep, it takes a lot of sheep.
Yes, it does.
So it's not because they don't want to, it's numbers, it's strictly numbers. And so once the open handlers use a fresh set, then they go on and get used in the nursery, and they're just really think about the numbers.
Yes.
So that's really, they just don't have a novice and pro novice program per se,
Yeah.
But so the MSSA does, and the NCA does. The MSSA has sheep as well, sheep and cattle, and NCA is strictly cattle. But so fast forward into that, my favorite thing, I've been in this a long time, and I really enjoy field work. I like the distance work.
Yeah.
So that's why I've leaned that way a little, just strictly I love the field. And the MSSA does have one field run at their finals, which is really great that they've added that. So that's a bonus too.
Well, NCA is, do they have field trials? Because I've only run in the arena ones here.
Their finals is all in the field, except for you start out in the novice and the intermediate are in an arena. They actually have the intermediate finals, though, are out in the field. And they had that. It was quite the course, and it would be worth going back and looking at what they expect.
Is that listed somewhere on the NCA website, or?
Yeah, I think you could go back. They had a live.
Yes, I saw that. It was really, I watched a bunch of runs.
Yeah, you can watch them back. You can go on back, but
yeah,
the intermediate would be interesting. The novice finals was still in the arena. They're trying to grow your level before they put you out there. The nursery was also in the field every run,
Yeah. So the big difference between MSSA, NCA, and USBCHA and all those, and say ASCA and HBA, is the levels. So it's based on the handler, not the dog. So in ASCA, that's based on the dog. So you can take a handler who's witched 100 dogs and they still start and started, and they go to open and they go to advanced. But in these other organizations, if you're an open handler, your dog starts in open, even if it's just a young dog, right? So that's a huge, that's kind of a thing, because how do you get your young dogs experience before you end up having to do that?
The nursery class is only age. So we can start in the nursery, and some of the, which is good. I mean, at this point in my career, I don't really feel like they have a pro novice class, and that means it's either a pro handler, novice dog, or vice versa. Can be the other way around. And sometimes I get in those classes, if I have a young dog, but basically if I have my dog running well enough to be competitive in nursery, generally I can swap them between nursery and open.
Because it's the same course most of the time, right?
Most of the time it's similar. They might let you go a little closer to them or change just a little tiny tweak on things, but basically the same course. Yeah. So I feel like, I feel strongly that the beginning handlers, and that didn't happen with me when I started, I feel like they should be in their own group and then graduate out.
I kind of agree.
And that is a really great thing about the MSSA.
Yes.
Is the way that their program works.
And the MSSA guys, I'll tell you that Jeannie Biggers is the one that kind of started that and runs it. And she will let ASCA, Australian Shepherd Club handlers, start in intermediate. Even if you're an advanced handler, you can start in intermediate. And I did it because I ran a cattle dog trial up here a couple months ago. And she's like, she noticed I was entered to open, and she messaged me and said, hey, you can go down to intermediate. And I was like, no, he won cattle finals. I just wouldn't feel right about that. Like, I just wouldn't. Kind of wish I had, but no. And again, I don't, because he did fine, but I kind of froze. I was real nervous because the dog that ran before me had a perfect run. He
Sure.
ended up
Yeah,
winning.
yeah.
And I was so intimidated, and they were all border collies and one Aussie, and he's out there looking at me like, what do you want me to do? And I was kind of like frozen. So look, I know that when I go to these border collie trials, I am not going to be successful at the beginning, because first of all, there's new rules, new ways of going and doing things, um, different stock, different situations. So you just get ready to be like, okay, I'm going to be like a beginner. I'm a beginner again in this new
Yeah.
area. But then guess what? You get better. You can get better and be successful.
For sure. Like so I'm just going to say, I have not been the best competitor at some of these. So my brain is very simple. Like at the USBCHA sheep field courses, you basically did an outrun, and then you did a triangle drive of 150, 200 yard, with big holes and to hit. And it's tricky in a different way because it's distance,
Mm-hmm.
and they want things, to be, nice lines and things, but very simple in my head. And when I went to the cattle dog trialing, there's all these obstacles, and there's all these holes that you forget about. And you can't put your hand in there, and you can't run, and you can't, just things. And then I forget to even move because, I've never been able to move. I've just stood at
From the post.
and,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you don't cross your course, and you don't do all these things. And now all of a sudden anything goes. And I'll be honest, I've been really slow to transition into, really competitive. The mistakes that I make still at the NCA and the MSSA type trials is I kind of go, geez, Joni, come on. But
yeah, but that's a great example though, because guys that are listening, Joni's a very well-respected trialer in the sheepdog area. Like, you have a really good, strong reputation of winning a lot. And now you're learning something new. So sometimes you have to go back to being a beginner in a way. And
I
it
totally
feels
have.
like you're falling on your face, even though it probably didn't look like that out to anyone else, but it feels like it because it doesn't click and it's not as smooth, right?
I really had a lot of people say things to me that were crazy. So some were like, geez, we thought you, and not these exact words, but basically we thought you would be better than you are, and you should be better. And I thought you were, and, some of those things. And, one of the things is I've definitely gone out of my comfort zone, and it's been a little bit of a mental block for me, but I decided I get it. I'm not going to step in and be the best one at it. And it's a new thing for me, and I'm willing to work at it. And
Yeah.
And I think that eventually it'll come second nature for me to do it. But it hasn't. It didn't just happen. And that's a word of advice for anybody. And now it's gotten a little bit personal. Like, okay, come on, I can do this. I get to the end of the course, and I've had a smoking fast run, and I'm really in good shape, and I can't remember how the sort goes. Yeah, lots of times, and I'm like, oh. And even this year in the nursery at the NCA finals with my young nursery dog, it doesn't make sense to me, and you can look up and read numbers, but when you get a little nervous and you're thinking fast, or trying to think fast, it's funny. I can go to the wrong obstacle. This year, I almost went to the wrong obstacle, and somebody in the audience, I heard him say, "Where are you going?" And I went,
I don't know.
I don't know. And then I looked around and realized I was leaving. And it took me almost a minute to go back and do the one that I just passed up, which really hurt my placing.
Yes.
And, I've been my own worst enemy, keeping things straight. And I'll be honest. So I've watched agility, and I knew I could never do agility. I'm like, no way would I ever be able to follow where those courses. Not even maybe. So anyway, that's my challenge, is keeping stuff straight. And it's not the training, and it's not the relationship with my dog, but following the courses has been very hard for me, and, thinking it out. So.
Well, that's the difference between, like ASCA, we have 10 courses or something like that. And it's always the same course. You can, what course is coming up for the trial. You can set it up and train on it, practice it,
yes,
whatever,
they throw a new thing out
then
there.
You go and you do something new. And then the NCA and MSSA, those are different courses all the time, because you can make up whatever you
Anything you want.
There's no rules, which is awesome, but also challenging. It makes it challenging. It just means we have to then be prepared for everything. And then there's always going to be, oh yeah, you're going to have to get them through a chute. You have to, there's always a few elements that you can be, okay, we can train on those elements, but it's always challenging. And I'm like you, I started with my young Aussie, she was too young to work stock, and we did agility for a little while, which she loved and I hated, because I'm like, I can't remember where to go, and she's just going to go where she wants to. But I was like, I can't keep up with those courses. So those agility people get mad props from me, because the fact that you can just remember what's next is pretty impressive.
Oh, for sure. Think about taking the mind like Jeannie Biggers into the cattle dog courses. That's probably, it doesn't even quicken her pulse. She's
right.
Like, hold my beer. This is nothing.
That's right. Remember this, remember that. Oh yeah, I forgot how to sort. Like, you could just like forget how to do things that you've done 100 times. And the thing is, you have to, in order to be a competitor at high levels, I think you have to remember you're playing your own game. You're competing against yourself. You're, yeah, we're competitive and we want to win, right? But you also have to know that it's about you and your mindset, right? And it's your game that you're playing, and who cares what anyone else says?
Yes, as soon about as you start competing against,
as
soon as you start competing against the good that just ran before you, you've just set yourself back. It's true.
That's exactly true, because that's what happened to me at that cattle trial. Like, the dog was perfect. Sure. I'm like, there's no way we can beat that. And it's like, wait. And my head was so messed up. But you learn things like that. And if what I've learned in the last year, because I did win cattle finals and we did really well last year, people will talk about you when you suck, and people will talk about you when you win. It doesn't matter. They're just going to say they're going to, so you just gotta, people are going to be like that. And then you just have to focus on, to me, drawing people to you that are going to support you. They're going to listen to you playing. They're going to listen to your stuff, and they're going to be like, you can do this. You're awesome. And when you win, they're happy for you. And
the thing is, though, is if anybody starts, have you ever noticed that if somebody starts winning too much, then all of a sudden people are just not happy for them anymore?
Yeah.
Not anymore. That's not fair. But it gets less. People start kind of, hoping that they don't win and they don't need to win, and, that kind of thing. And I guess people just really sometimes, they just feel a little, it feels a little cruel to me that if somebody's winning a lot, that they really don't wish them the best sometimes. And that's just a realistic look. I mean, I've watched it time and time again. Just this year at the NCA finals, there were complaints about somebody for something that happened to 3 different people, and 2 people that weren't really a threat to winning. The complaints weren't for the same thing, didn't get brought up, but the one that was the threat to winning, the complaints were incredible. Yeah. And it just comes up all the time. And those kind of things.
It's sad. And we have, a couple of handlers around here in Texas and the Aussie world that are phenomenal. And I don't win against them. Fortunately, I did really well at finals, but that I don't win against them for a while there at all, ever. And now I can win one trial a weekend, and then it's up to 2 trials a weekend now. And somebody asked me, one of them asked me, not in a mean way, because I travel with her a lot, and we're friends, and she's like, does it not bother you that I beat you all the time? And she wasn't saying in a mean way. Everybody thinks that, but it wasn't. It was very much like, I don't want to hurt your feelings or make you feel bad about yourself. And I said, no, it doesn't bother me at all, because every time I ask her a question, she tells me. Every time I come out, she'll be like, you know what, you did this, and this wrong. And guess what? Every single time I can choose to either be offended by that, or I can choose to be like, next time that's not going to happen. And I can get better and better and better. And that's why I told her, I said, I don't care. If I'm winning all the time, I'm not in the right company, because I'm not growing, right? So I personally don't have a problem with somebody who wins and is successful. Everybody, if you keep training your dogs and you keep getting better, you'll be in that spot someday. And then you can,
well, that's
hopefully
exactly.
people will treat you.
It's, if we don't have somebody to chase, what would we do? I mean, really, I love to sit and watch a good handler and think about the things they're doing.
And watch them and be like, oh, why are they standing there? And then I'll go stand there and go, oh, now I know why they're standing here, because it works.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool. And I don't personally feel good. I've won a couple buckles and ribbons because I was the only dog in the class. To me, that doesn't really.
Yeah.
we didn't
No,
win.
that's a really good point. When it means the most is when you've outran somebody that you've looked up to and really thought it would be hard to outrun. And
Yeah, and I've been
those are the
fortunate
things
the
that
people
matter
that
most.
I surround myself with, at least to my face, don't say things rude. Sure,
Sure,
they say stuff behind my back, but that's their business, not mine. It's none of
sure,
my business what they
absolutely,
say about me, because it doesn't affect anything, and I'm not the best yet, but I'm on the track. I keep wanting to be better and better all the time.
sure,
So I think that's a mindset
oh, for
thing,
sure,
right?
yeah,
So cool.
totally.
I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I'm really honored. Really, those of you that are listening who don't know who Jodi is, she has a really exceptional reputation. And I was worried when I reached out to you, thought, oh, she's not going to want to talk to me about Aussies and stuff like that because you're in the Border Collies. But then I knew you had something to share about Dude, and I'm just really honored that you came here, and it means
Well,
a
I
lot to
appreciate
me.
your time, and I really hope I actually, with the stuff I've got going on right now with some of the lessons that I've been given with the couple Aussies that are coming, it's kind of refreshing it made me smile, like looking at them and watching them, and I've really enjoyed it, and so I'll probably be following a little bit more than I have for a while.
Good. I hope so. And do you do clinics very often? Like, do you come around and do clinics for people, or do
I
you just
used
do
to do
lessons?
some clinics, but now I really like to be home. I have a big
Yeah.
training schedule and I have a full kennel. And what I like is to invite people here,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a little group. What's wonderful is if somebody has like a couple of people they get on with or that are doing the same things
Mm-hmm.
that would want to come and work with me here. I have the best stock. I have the best facility.
Awesome.
It's one-on-one time. So what I've found, if I really want to be helpful to somebody and not only that, it sorts out the people that are serious. If they're
Yes,
going to get in
ma'am.
their car and drive and come and stay with me and work, they're probably pretty serious. And those are the people that
Mm-hmm.
I like to have the most.
Definitely. Well, I will be getting a group together, I think. So there's several of us that I know are going to be super happy to hear you say that when they hear all this come out. But I agree with you too. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and people that come out here are dedicated, and they have to
Yeah.
be to get.
I've had good luck with the clinics I have, but really me staying home and training
Yeah.
here and then having people watch me train and their whole
Yeah.
day with me for the
Yep.
amount of money that I have people tell me I'm way too cheap, but I don't have to go anywhere and I still get my
Mhm.
dogs trained.
Yeah.
So it's a really good deal. And that's what
Well,
I enjoy that. So,
and
and I don't put it out there,
I
but
agree. I agree. I agree. I think that, for myself, I'm selfish. I don't I'm about time efficiency, and maybe that's the business mindset that I have, but I will find somebody that people are raving about in a clinic, and I'd rather go to them and have private time, and usually it's not
I
as
think it's
expensive and you get a
instead of
lot
their
more
10 minutes,
time
yes,
and you get
the rest of the
hours
time.
and I've had the best results doing that. I don't really want to tell everybody that because
I
I
think
do
that's
put clinics
exactly.
on, but
Yeah.
mhm,
So that's kind of what I like to do. And
cool.
yeah. So
Well,
I really
awesome.
appreciate you
Yes,
like
thank you so
reaching out
much
to
for
me.
your time, and I'm really grateful. So thanks for being on the
Thank you.
podcast.
Okay.
Hey, and that's the show today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed it and got to learn something about this amazing breed, the Australian Shepherd. Join us on Facebook. We have a private group called the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. Join the group and join the conversation there. You can also find us online at theinstinctiveaussie.com. That's where you'll find all the show notes, the links to anything we talked about this show, and all of our past episodes. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you find your favorite podcasts, and that way you'll be the first ones to know as soon as an episode is uploaded. All right, everyone, I'll see you down the road.